When a consumer asks AI what to buy, does your brand come up? For most retailers right now, the answer is they just don't know. And that's exactly how brands become invisible. Search rankings that took years to build are being rewritten in months. Consumers are bypassing Google, bypassing paid search, bypassing the digital shelf retailers have spent years optimizing, and going straight to AI. And the brands that aren't visible in that conversation aren't just losing clicks, they're being written out of the consideration set entirely before the shopping journey even begins. And unlike the last major shift in e-commerce, which really gave retailers the best part of a decade to adapt, this one isn't waiting. The pace of change is being compressed in ways most retailers haven't fully reckoned with yet. The technology landscape is shifting faster than at any point in the industry's recent history, and the operational and commercial consequences of moving too slow are becoming very difficult to recover from. Today on Retail Untangled, I'm joined by Vadish Shetty, VP Global Marketing at Rezolve Ai. We're going to get into why visibility in AI is a fundamentally different problem to visibility in search, why the window to act is shorter than most retailers think, and what it actually takes to stay in the conversation your customers are already having without you. Welcome, Vadish.
Thank you, Amie. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Second day of NRF.
Right, yeah. How's the first day been?
It's been busy, but there's been some amazing content, keynotes.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, third year in a row for us, and it's been exciting. There's a lot of conversations yesterday on everything that we are going to speak about in the next 30 minutes. Excited for the next 2 days as well.
All right. So for the first time, retailers are competing for the discovery moment in a layer they didn't build and they can't really control. No SEO playbook, no paid search lever, no merchandising tool that works the way it used to. Are retailers in this region actually ready for that? And what does that even, I suppose, look like now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, most of the retailers aren't ready, right? And the ones who think they're not really looking at the right dashboards, right? Maybe they're looking at more the old and the legacy dashboards. And, for 20 years, as a marketer myself, we kind of own that discovery moment, right? We kind of looked at how do we optimize a page? How do we kind of rank a keyword? How do you kind of control the funnel, right? And that playbook is just retired in the last 18 months, 24 months, pretty much on real time, right? So if you look at stats, and let's just talk about that. Adobe kind of reported a 800 plus percentage year-on-year increase in AI-driven traffic, right? And that's a massive shift to where and what retailers have been doing for years. Some of the data that Rezolve AI released a couple of days ago as well is we're looking at about a 30 trillion global retail industry where AI and agentic commerce is projected to mediate about $5 trillion. And these are just massively big numbers. And retailers that I speak to in the region over the last day here at NRF as well are still running campaigns for a world that is, disappearing pretty rapidly in front of our own eyes, right? Your product data is structured well enough when a consumer would ask in the right way, right? So, when a consumer asks ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini to recommend something in your category, your brand shows up. And it shows up accurately, it shows up confidently. And that's really where a lot of retailers are focusing towards at this moment in Asia, right? Which is the AEO aspect. And that's the new SEO. And the brands that are getting ahead of it are really using their product catalog as the infrastructure, since that's the foundation, not just the content of it, right? And that's where Rezolve AI comes in, and some of the conversations yesterday at NRF was really about turning that unfragmented or the unstructured, right, and the fragmented catalog into more clean, agentic-ready data subsets, right? And that's a big conversation that we were having around, how do you kind of look at an AEO audit report and, share that with an extended team in terms of driving visibility, right? So AEO is a new SEO, and that's just a reality that all retailers have to accept.
Yeah. Now, agentic commerce puts it's an intermediary between a retailer and their customer, and it's certainly one that they didn't choose. A retailer could influence what the AI sees, as you've just said, but they can't control what it recommends. So, how do you operate a commerce strategy around something that powerful and really that unpredictable?
Yeah. So you need to stop trying to control the surface, right? And you need to start owning the data that actually feeds it. And that's the mindset shift for retailers. So you can't really dictate what an AI recommends, but you can absolutely determine if your brand is credible, it's structured, it's reliable source that the AI agent wants to surface, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be a massive fragmented mess that they will quietly skip over, right? And retailers that are actually navigating this are making sure that the relationship with these platforms or the intermediary are part of their overall strategy, right? So you have to make your catalog speak the language of the AI, and have real-time inventory, have accurate pricing, have policy data that the agent can actually reason over, right? And that's pretty much the massive strategic imperative that we're hearing from retailers, where either you kind of own the AI experience or you become a commoditized inventory, right?
Yeah.
That's where just kind of the conversations from a Rezolve AI standpoint is our LLM, which is Commerce Tune, which is the brain power, is built to kind of address that, right? So you look at a lot of large language models that have a retail wrapper around it, and that doesn't do justice to what a retailer needs, right? So you need to have a purpose-built commerce LLM that actually looks at any AI agent that is querying your brand, making sure that the response is grounded, it's auditable, it's brand safe. Otherwise, the unpredictability of it doesn't disappear. And the exposure to it doesn't shrink either, right? So with brainpower, with the Rezolve AI LLM, we make sure that it's dramatically reduced when the data is the most reliable aspect in the room.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, if AI becomes that primary sort of relationship a consumer has with a brand during the purchase journey, what does that mean for loyalty, for trust, for sort of everything that a brand is built around that customer relationship with direct?
Yeah, so it really means that everything you've built around that direct relationship is at risk, right? Unless you move really quickly. So if you look at a consumer's primary shopping relationship with a third-party AI assistant, right? Your brand just becomes a fulfillment utility at the moment, right? So the loyalty, the trust, the emotional connection, all of it gets mediated by someone else's model, right? And that is an absolutely terrifying place to be as a retailer, and it's more closer than what most retailers realize today. Right. So the answer is not to kind of fight the AI wave, and that's our suggestion to them. It's to deploy your
Let's
own.
do the opposite.
It's do the opposite. It's to deploy your own, right? And because when you put a real brand controlled, commerce trained AI on your digital surfaces, right? Whether it's your website or your app, right? That can actually guide shoppers with the expertise and complete the transaction, you can kind of reclaim that relationship yourself. And I think one aspect that I think all of us need to be very clear on is that shoppers are not really coming onto their website or coming onto our website from a retailer standpoint to have a casual conversation, right? They're here to decide whether they need that white sneaker or a green dress, and they want to buy, right? And if an AI cannot guide them to the right product, check them out without any friction, right? And that's where a lot of the loyalty in this AI era is going to be really, really built, right? So, and that's primarily the most of the conversational commerce conversations that we have at Rezolve AI.
Way, I suppose that the trust piece is more important than ever before, because you're going to be bringing people to your site, and you want to be able to build that relationship.
Yeah.
Beyond that point.
Yeah, and after like 2-3 interactions, if the shopper feels that, well, I'm not really going anywhere, and I'm not getting the right product, and I'm not kind of getting the right recommendation, or I'm not having a virtual try on aspect of it, then they're just going to go back to that AI platform where they are most comfortable with, right? Whether it's a Gemini or a GPT that they're using on a daily basis on their mobile devices.
There's a step beyond discovery that most retailers haven't fully grappled with yet. The moment when AI doesn't just recommend, but actually completes the transaction on the consumer's behalf. What does that shift from recommendation to execution for how retailers need to think about their commerce infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, Amy, you've kind of spoken to retailers for the last several years, right? And a lot of that in checkout infrastructure is already obsolete, right? And they just don't know it yet, to be very honest, right? Because every checkout flow that we've built is for a human like me and you clicking through 5 pages, filling out forms. Going through the crazy captchas, and that's something that an AI agent cannot navigate towards, right? And that the stakes to that are really enormous, because when we look at abandonment rates, and that's about $2 trillion annually, and that's not really a UX problem. It's structurally a failure of the commerce infrastructure that happens at a global scale, right? And so really the shift from recommendation to execution requires checkout to be really invisible. It needs to be very API driven, primitive, just getting a bit technical here. It's something that an AI agent can actually invoke very instantly under strict brand guidelines, and guardrails, and have real time inventory and pricing validation and some of those aspects going on, right? So it's not really a feature. It's absolutely a new category of commerce infrastructure that retailers need to think about. And some of the conversations that we have around Brain Checkout, which is our agentic checkout product, is really around universal cart orchestration, secure wallet-based transactions, looking at blockchain-enabled payments, looking at stablecoin support, and that's where the future of agentic checkout is moving towards, right? So, you want to make sure that AI agents are routing through that. Not a crazy maze of checkout flows and processes, but it's clean, it's fast, and it's reliable.
So 20 years ago, a major e-commerce build would have taken 18 months. A large portion of people. Today, the same outcome can take only a couple of days. Shein and Temu went from irrelevant to existential in under 5 years. When you put those two things together, what does that tell us about the speed at which the competitive landscape can now shift under the retailer's feet?
Yeah, I mean, it's an uncomfortable truth for large retailers. So I was in Australia in December, and we were speaking to quite a few retailers where the two players that you spoke about are just massively big. I mean, you look at Singapore as well, and some of the other parts of Asia. These are the retailers that are driving a massive portion of the retail revenue. And it kind of tells you that scale is no longer a mate. It's no longer a moat. It's an anchor. And the infrastructure that retailers have built, the vendor relationships and so on, kind of slows you down, where really the barrier to market has essentially collapsed, right? And to be honest, having seen Shein and Temu, right, over the last several years, they didn't really win because they had better products.
Yeah.
Right? They won because they moved fast. They really iterated relentlessly, and they were technology first, right? And that's what retailers need to think about: is the competitive threat is no longer coming from someone you can see on the horizon, right? It's coming from companies that don't exist yet, and we've seen that
Yeah.
in the last few years. And the only response to that is velocity, right? And how do you deploy conversational agentic discovery solutions that are quick enough, that do not require replatforming? You kind of iterate and drive those proof of concepts and proof of values to see where it works, right? And in this environment, with a lot of retailer conversations, that 18-month roadmap that retailers used to talk about a few years ago is a liability.
I was going to say the pace of change is striking.
Yep.
Do you think that retailers know how little time they have to act?
It's kind of mixed, right? I think a lot of retailers are at that forefront where they believe that data needs to be clean and so on and so forth. But are they fast enough? And the short answer and the direct answer is no.
Probably not, given we've had this conversation for so many years now in terms of getting your data right, and we're still probably not at that point.
Yeah, and more so, I think you could get away with that a few years ago, not anymore.
Not at all. And so the invisible brand, it's a confronting idea. What are the warning signs that a retailer is heading in that direction? And are most of them even looking for those signals?
Yeah. So the warning signs, I mean, most aren't looking, right? And I think I spoke about this at the early aspect of it. The signals don't really show up in the dashboards you're watching. The most immediate warning sign is really AI surface invisibility, right? So if you ask ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity for a recommendation, and your brand never appears, or worse, appears with inaccurate pricing and inventory, you are already invisible. The next generation of shoppers, right? And the second aspect that we kind of want to always kind of tell retailers around discovery distortion, right? So you look at LLM generated product review summaries, and one of the research reports talks about how the sentiment of the original reviews is distorted by about 27% of the cases, right? And that's where, with hallucination rates that are about 60% and so on and so forth, and consumers that are 32% more likely to purchase after reading an AI generated summary, means generic AI is actively shaping decisions with inaccurate information, right? And back to that original point about why generic LLMs with a retail wrapper doesn't work for retailers is you're getting a consumer to buy a product which is not really true based on distortion and hallucinations, right? So, you really need to ground your AI about your brand. You need to have real-time product data, just to make sure that you're not invisible and not being misrepresented.
That makes sense. So the conversations you're having with retailers across the globe, like, what are the ones getting this right actually doing? And what are the ones getting it wrong, still sort of holding on to? And told us a little bit about, what they're potentially doing wrong.
Yeah. So a lot of the retailers, that's a great question. A lot of the retailers that we feel are getting it right are s- really stopped treating AI as a department, and they've started treating it as an infrastructure. A lot of retailers, I mean, you look around NRF, there's a lot of AI powered vendors and solution providers out here, and all of them are doing fantastic, right? But I think for a retailer to look at fragmented point solution, and especially for enterprise retailers, when they're running 5 to 10 to 15 disconnected tools, it increases their total cost of ownership by about 30 to 40%. And it creates data silos that makes impossible for any AI to deploy well, right? So what we've seen is retail leaders really moving to a unified platform, like the one Rezolve AI has with our Brain Suite, which connects discovery, guidance, and checkout into one single seamless flow. And they're investing in data quality as a strategic asset, and it's not just an IT backlog item, right? So, and just the last aspect there, they are deploying conversational experiences that actually complete transaction. It's not just a chatbot that's just answering questions. And the ones that are getting it wrong are still holding on to an idea that there can be an FAQ assistant that counts as an AI strategy. They've checked the box, but they've not really changed the architecture of the infrastructure. They're holding on to siloed teams, back to a conversation around SEO. And not having a unified view of their entire customer journey, right? So then that's where the structural fragmentation inside the retail business mirrors the fragmentation that you see in a consumer or a shopping journey that me and you go through on any e-commerce website or an app as well. So and that's costing massive revenue for them on a daily basis.
Now, if a retailer is listening to this and leaves the conversation and does one thing differently, what's your piece of advice to them? Is a move that gets them into this new world, so to speak.
It's quite simple. Run a proof of concept in this quarter. And it's not a pilot. It's not a vendor evaluation. It's actual production development. Pick the highest intent, highest volume segment in your catalog or your category. Look at what you can do from a data enrichment standpoint. Look at what you can do from a conversational commerce perspective. And the retailers who are truly winning right now are not really waiting for the perfect strategy, because they've run something real. They've seen numbers. They've accelerated those proof of concepts, and that's truly the move that gets any retailer off the sidelines and into the game that we are in today.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Retail Untangled, and a big thank you to Vadish Shetty from Rezolve Ai for joining me live from NRF APAC in Singapore. To be the first to know when the next episode lands, like and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts.